Today is the second part of a series that's only two parts. So there was the first part, and today's the second part. And so I'll make some references to what we did before, and then just wrap it up today. On Tuesday, I was speaking with a friend by Zoom, a good friend, a couple I've known for many years, and they live in Abu Dhabi. And so we met on Zoom. It was morning for me, afternoon for them. And he was Jordan and his wife. Jordan was just coming from having given 2 talks at the Expo Dubai. And so I said, so tell me, how did it go? How were your talks and what was your experience? And so it was pretty neat. We were enjoying that. And then I know that he was preparing for an ultra marathon that's coming up, where you can look it up. I didn't really pay attention to the details, but I guess they're going to run across the desert in Morocco. And it's like, I don't know if it's running like 4 or 5 marathons over 4 or 5 days, something like that. And it's pretty intense. I just thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And so he's training for that. But he said, I've got some changes coming. He said, I went to an ophthalmologist because there was something going on with my eye. And so I went to the ophthalmologist, and he said, I need to send you to get some testing in another city, and we want to get a look at your brain. And so he went to the nearby city, and they discovered that he had some aneurysms on his brain. And the doctor said, the first doctor, of course, came out and said, we found something in the imaging, and your life will change. You will never run again. You will never exercise again. And I gave him the worst case scenario. And thankfully he said, he just said, okay, I'll get another opinion. We went for the other opinion, and then in fact there were aneurysms, but the man was less pessimistic, but he said, you have options, and but it's an immediate surgery. So that surgery is about to happen. But he looked at Jordan, the doctor, and he said, so, I've just given you this news. How are you doing? Like, how do you feel? Because you're about to get back in the car and drive across the country back to your city. And Jordan said, and I know he said it from the bottom of his heart because I know what kind of guy he is. He said, I am really grateful. And the guy's like, grateful? Like, help me understand. And he said, I'm really grateful because I have options. And Jordan's job in the world is he is a global ambassador to youth. That's how come he's speaking at Expo Dubai and things like that. He travels the world speaking to young people and working with young people. And so he's in this international world, and he looked at the doctor. He said, there's 6.5 billion people in the world right now that don't have access to this kind of medical care that I'm receiving. And they would never even know what was going on inside. And so I'm grateful that I have options. Well, that was an amazing kind of response. And I just shared it because this was Tuesday morning. And on Sunday morning, I had talked about RAFT. And so go to the RAFT slide, Christy. And RAFT, I said, was an acronym that I found in this book that I was enjoying, written by the company where my son works. And my son, somebody asked me if my son wrote the book. He did not write the book. My son was a salesperson in this massive company that had an incredible year when the COVID started. And they wrote about it. They called it Redefining Possible. So I talked about redefining possible, and one of the ideas is RAFT. Recognize that an event is happening. In the case of Jordan, you have this medical crisis. Accept that it's happening. Didn't just deny it and say, no, I'm just going to keep going to more doctors till I find somebody who says, no, you don't really have a brain aneurysm, it's just a spot or something. Then focus on what you can control. And then transform those negative aspects that are affecting you into something positive. What can you do? What can I do? And so RAFT, maybe you already knew that, you're using that, but it was a great acronym to help us in a crisis. And there have been other crises. So Jordan's life crisis probably doesn't affect you. But I was speaking to another friend in another city, and he told me, he said, something is wrong with my wife of 30 years. And we've been friends for these 30 years. And we can't get an accurate diagnosis. And they were scared. And then many of you know I already mentioned it in my prayer. Many of you were commenting in some of the chats in the WhatsApp groups, sending some prayers and love and support for Elizabeth Ray, a member of our community, as her brother was in the hospital just struggling to live, and for weeks, and it just went on, and then this week he died. And I said we wanted him to get better and to live for many more years, but he didn't. And so the miracle of healing that he received really took him to the presence of God. But it's a great loss and suffering, pain. And so there's other crises for other people. And so you have, perhaps, hopefully not, but many people have something going on. And then in Europe, imagine that news this week that we've been reading and following, the horror of a war between brothers and cousins. Young people sent out to trample on a neighboring country and die, even believing that they're actually liberators and heroes. War, lies, craziness, greed for power and conquering, putting people down. The Bible teaches that we all have the same capacity and the same tendency to cause a war. And maybe we don't have the capacity to cause a war in the country next door, but maybe with the neighbor who lives right across the street, or in the apartment just above us, or like that person whose dog won't stop barking at night, those kinds of things. Or maybe somebody who lives with us and shares the space. And so sometimes we don't even have a person to fight with, and we find ourselves fighting with ourselves. And so we walk around, we're anxious, we're envious, we're frustrated, we're greedy to achieve things, acquire things. We want to speak in such a way that people will obey us and do what we need, and the person at the desk will get it right. And I had one of those weeks where I had the crisis, and I talked about RAFT and just accept it and focus on what you can control and transform the negative and positive. And then we realized that Lisa and I we're traveling on Monday, and her cedula is expired. And you try to get a cedula or a document when you're in a hurry, and it can be tough. I would say at least 5 different people gave us 5 different answers. And so that, I don't even have to explain it. And so it was putting to the test my use of accept, focus, transform, and still working on it, but I'm going to get it done. But so we have these things going on inside us, and sometimes with our own pride and ego, we're fighting with words or a tone of voice or a way of looking at somebody, or these social games, dynamics, and family dynamics, and really to try to put other people down and make sure that we have control of a situation. We're complicated. I admit it. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say we. I am complicated, and you might be too, even if we learn the RAFT. And so that's why we were also looking at Romans chapter 12, because Romans 12, all of Romans really, it's this document that, if you've read it, is like, can be tough to understand, and it's theological. In fact, it's one of the most, it's one of the books that has been the most written about. Like, people write commentaries on Romans. And some of the famous Christians in history, Augustine, Martin Luther, John Wesley, people that like changed, impacted the world, their primary connection with God, that as a faith connection, came through reading Romans. And why? I say why. Paul is writing, and Paul had been this fanatic, religious fanatic, powerful person who was sowing terror, like sowing seeds, like a war is sowing these seeds of hate. And Paul, whose name at the time was Saul was sowing these seeds of hate and terror among the followers of Jesus in one time in his life. And so Romans 12, when you read it, don't read it like this sermon of somebody just saying, okay, here's what you have to do. Read it like the invitation of somebody whose life was actually transformed. And historians wrote about it and watched his change of life. And so Paul met somebody who was a follower of Jesus. And this person showed him love, even though Paul was his enemy, or his name was Saul, but that was his enemy. And then another one, and another one. And in a long process that really took years, 14 years, the Bible says, Paul's life was slowly transformed. And he came to be part of a community, an international community, in a city called Antioch. And history records that that was the first place that people were called Christians. So we always say the Christians, like the disciples, but actually people didn't think of them as Christians. They thought of them as Jews who followed Christ, this rabbi, this teacher. And so they were Jews, but they were following Christ. And something about Paul and the community he was a part of caused them to stop saying Jews who follow Christ and call them Christians, imitators of Christ, like little Christs. And so it had gone from being something that maybe some people thought it's just a belief, it's a way of talking about the same stuff, to saying, you know what, these are actually different, transformed, converted into something else. And so you can read about that in the book of Acts. It's written by Lucas. He's a medical doctor. He traveled. He's the one that interviewed Mary to be able to write the Gospel of Luke. And he traveled with Paul for years, and he wrote about some of it, the things that he saw. So Romans 12 then becomes an invitation to a life that is possible. It's not the first step in the life, because that's why it's chapter 12 instead of chapter 1. It's a goal. It's somewhere that we want to get to. It took Paul years. But if we want to get there, we have to work. And we have to get the weeds out of our head. And because I was talking about sowing seeds, so they grow weeds and get those weeds out of our brain. And we have to believe, choose to believe by faith that God the Creator came into this world to be part of our human history and to show us and demonstrate and assure us that a transformed life is possible. It's hard, but it's possible. Well, Lisa and I came to Uruguay in 2003 with a strong commitment. And our commitment was to share the love of God and reflect all the light that we could in all the places we could for as long as possible. And our vocation is pastoral. It's working with people. It means accompanying, guiding, helping people so that their future, your future, could be better by learning to live with faith in God and trusting in His presence and His promises. So for almost 20 years now, I've been involved in this community with Lisa. We've done a lot of different things. And so some of us just see each other in this small context right here. And, I taught a course at the British schools. I've worked with a number of schools, and particularly we were involved for 14 years at every level of our kids' school as they were growing up. And I know those of you who know me now with the gray hair, and it's hard to imagine me chasing after my 4-year-old Josh, but I was when I arrived. Anna Ruth was here. She knows. She remembers those days. And I used to, from making the people breakfast for students at school, coaching sports, scouts, the president of the board. I've just worked in different courses that we've taught in different parts of the city, the country, and the continent. We visited prisoners, sick people, drug addicts, farms, beaches, children's homes, businesses, embassies, slums. We have counseled, helped, collaborated with all the strength that God gives us. But I have to tell you, if we've accomplished anything good, it's because of God's mercy. Because a couple things. I've helped in a number of ecumenical masses. Now, if you look that up on Google, Google will tell you that does not exist, but it does in Uruguay. And so I've been there. I've been participating. And so, go ahead, look it up. Ecumenical mass. You can look it up after the service, but we've organized the first breakfast, National Prayer Breakfast. Been in dozens of weddings and burials and baptisms and divorces and suffering and goodbyes and arrivals. But all of that long list sounds kind of egotistical, doesn't it? If Lisa was, I don't say all that stuff. Are you talking about yourself? And I have people in the church that'll tell me, hey, don't talk about yourself, but I'm not talking about myself. I'm saying, I can make all the lists and say, these are the things that I've done. But if you were to go back and talk to any of those people, if their life wasn't helped in some way by experiencing some light and love of God, and I'm sure some of the people were not helped like I would have liked. But if they weren't helped, what was it worth? It just comes to nothing. It's so easy to pass through life. Thank you, David. Pass through life and not share really something of light and life. And so the challenge that I'm learning is it's not so important what I do. It's more important what kind of person I am. And not just who I am, but who I am becoming. Because all of us, I think, you wouldn't even be here if you didn't have somewhere in your mind the idea that hopefully I can grow and do a little better in my life and my relationships. All by myself, I have my own pride and greed and fear and anxieties. But by faith, I've searched and worked to ask God to work in my life. And it's hard work because Lisa likes to say, God does his part, but we have to do our part. And so what is my part? I believe God's presence is real, but I don't always feel like he's close to me. I don't always feel like I know what the next step is or what's the right thing to do. But I do have the certainty that I can trust him, and he will not leave me abandoned. I have the certainty that our life here is just a beginning. I feel that certainty. This is a moment of life that is a gift from God, and it's my opportunity. It's our opportunity to learn, to grow, all of whatever talents and abilities and spiritual gifts we have. We've been given this life to be as a blessing in order to be a blessing or an encouragement, a help to others. And so our church, our community then, is an experiment for every single person that comes in. Every time I'm here, I'm actually thinking this. I'm aware of this. This is a daily challenge for me to test my faith and ask God for mercy. You know, because in our community, some people come lots. Some people come a few times. Some people participate in activities outside this building. Some people just participate in private, like maybe they come to Zoom, but they don't come on the screen. Or maybe they meet with me, but not with you. Or all the different ways. It's not easy to believe, particularly if you live and work with people who don't have any faith. And so it's especially hard to believe if the community you're watching doesn't have love with integrity. And so I carry that in my heart. I say, wow, what kind of leader am I helping this community to become? When I'm thinking these things, writing this week, I'm thinking about the war in Ukraine. I have friends in Ukraine. Maybe some of you do. I have colleagues there who are not friends, but they're colleagues. I know them professionally. And maybe some of you do. Or in Russia. And in some of these other places that maybe don't always get the same attention, but have similar levels of violence, like Myanmar and places. And so I have friends in these places, and I think, how are we preparing each other to live in light of these crises? Because I can ignore it. I mean, people say, oh, you live in Uruguay, it's peace, it's beautiful. I'm like, yeah, it is. But so that's a blessing for today. And how do I use that to help somebody else? People called us from Portugal, from the States, from different places to say, I don't know why they would call me, except I've been their pastor in the past. And they say, John, they're nervous, they're fearful for their friends in Ukraine, for example, or in Moldova, or and I've got somebody there that we help, or this is my friend, or my best friend I went to college with, and how do I pray? Wow. So we have to engage, and maybe you are engaged in these places. So I think about that, and I think about our mission as a church. And so the next slide, Christy, is our mission. Mission is something that really doesn't change. Mission answers, why are we here? And our mission as Christ Church, it's written in a lot of places, but we haven't said it for a while. It's just to encourage and equip people to follow Christ wherever they are. I love those words. It's to encourage. First thing, encourage. If you don't know what else to do, encourage somebody. Say something nice. Be nice, or just, be quiet. Just be there with them. Encourage them. Equip them if you know something that can help. Point them in a direction. Give them a tool to follow Christ wherever they are. Wherever they are is geographical, like right here, Lieja, Conarosena, or in Uruguay, or when they're calling from Portugal, or wherever that is. Or it could mean wherever they are emotionally or spiritually. They're just feeling far away, or they're sad, or they're depressed, or they're happy, or they're, And then to help them experience the power and presence of God in their life. That's our mission. How do you help someone experience the power and presence of God? Well, I suggest the main way is to get connected to God yourself. If you can be experiencing the confidence of His presence, even when you don't feel it, the certainty that God will guide me, He won't let me go, then that begins to shine through your life. And other people are like, wow, how did you find peace? So, Christ Church, I like to say, is a little bit like a bus. We're a bus going down the road. We're on a mission. Next slide. And people are getting on the bus and advancing a little bit further down the road of life. Some get further than others because they stay on the bus longer, or they travel, all the different things. It's just a fun metaphor for me. And so the bus has 4 wheels. On the picture you can see 2 wheels. But a bus has at least 4 wheels. And so those are like the main things. Alpha is 1 wheel. The Alpha course and the Alpha marriage course. Godly play. And then community Bible study. Which, I don't know if you have it in Spanish there, Dave. Estudios Bíblicos en Comunidad. And then emotionally healthy discipleship. Those courses that we teach. So I'm going to come back to that. But let me say something about vision. So we know the mission is to encourage and equip people and to help them along the way. and then we're on this bus on the way, and then we go to vision. And the vision we've talked about in the pastoral team, and I shared at the end of last year in a congregational meeting, for these next 2 or 3 years particularly, is forming the next generation to increase our circle of contribution to the community. We want to be an ever-growing circle of friends, committed to a culture that facilitates the development of leaders who are emotionally and spiritually mature. So in other words, everything that I'm doing and working, I want to help you grow towards greater maturity. Maturity is like, for example, being a calm, non-anxious presence in the midst of a crisis. I was calm and non-anxious for many years. I've shared that because I was like disconnected. That's a different thing. That was a result of immaturity, that I was just like, oh, okay, no big deal. You know, that happened over there, that happened to you. It's like somehow I just was able to disconnect. And so people thought, wow, John is just so calm in a crisis. But actually I wasn't connected to the person at all emotionally. So learning that has been a challenge for me. Then maturity means how to be connected to the emotions of the other person and the situation and feel that empathy, but not get all anxious and wound up about it myself. And so that's just one practical example of maturity. And so, but a mature person knows how to care for children. And I'm concerned always for our children, for their safety, for their security, for their growth, for their that they would be adequately supported and listened to. Connecting with teenagers, honoring elderly people, taking initiative, giving generously, listening well, speaking wisely, including others. It's not easy to talk to somebody if you can't understand their name. Am I right? That's a challenge at Christ Church, I admit it. I mean, there's some cultures and some languages, it's been a challenge for me. And it really helps when somebody comes in and gives me an American name. And the poor pastor, he's an American, that's all he can do. And they're right. And so thanks for helping me. But it's hard to go talk to somebody if you don't understand them or you're afraid you won't. When I came to Uruguay, I would go into a store and I felt like I spoke Spanish. I mean, I studied it for years. I lived in Colombia for 10 years. And I came here and I would start to talk and I would just see like the Persian blinds of their brain go close. And people were just like, foreigner, I can't understand it. And I could see it happening. So one thing that made me aware of, other people coming in are watching for my reaction to them. Do they feel appreciated, listened to, a visitor that comes in here? Or do our Persian blinds go down and be like, oops, one of these guys who'll probably be gone next week, so I'll avoid him today, and maybe I won't have to talk to him at all. And so those are the kinds of things that maturing means, taking that initiative and saying, hey, I'm the host here. This is my church, this is my community, this is my country, and I'm going to reach out. So our vision is to see people getting off the bus and attending people in all different places. It's not about having all the activities be here. All of you have your lives, you're busy, you're involved, you're engaged. And so, but you can go off the bus, do your work, and when you come back, you have someone where you feel safe to share your joys, your sadness, your good times. And there's different people all the time, but we're becoming friends. So if you're part of the family of Christ Church, I mean, we'll always be part of your family. There are those of us who are here for the long term that we always remember. You come back or you call us, you're in another part of the world, and we're like, yeah. If you're new here, it's hard to imagine that we have like hundreds and hundreds of people that have been coming through here in the last 20 years and are all over. And not everybody stays in touch or had a great experience, but some did, and we're in touch. So when I talk about developing people, I just mean we're trying to develop a whole person. We want you to be able to resolve conflicts, manage your finances, So we teach on that usually once a year. All these different areas of your life. We want you to be successful in the things you're doing. Like I want to be a good pastor and care for you well. Well, I want you to be a good teacher, fabulous teacher or writer or worker or wherever you are, so that we all have, we said in Romans 12, a different role. People have different roles, and so that's important. Well, let's look at Romans for a few minutes. And we're getting towards the end, but I'm not done yet. Romans, the next one, Christy. I said Christy was the best on the PowerPoint, and he is, when I give him the text in a language that he reads and understands. But if I give it to him in a foreign language, it's a challenge. So, Romans 12, verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world." Actually, Dave, can you give me an English Bible, please? "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I said that's faith. Making a conscious decision. It's choosing to believe, even when we don't feel it and we're not sure. Now I want to skip down to verse 9. We read the rest of it last week. It's fantastic, but I just want to skip down and honor the time that we have. Romans 12:9 to the end of the chapter. Remember, this is Paul's invitation. This is not a command, like you better be doing this right now. It's like Paul saying, this is possible. God can help you become this person. Verse 9. "Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord." Means like a lot of love for other people and for the Lord. "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Now I know some people get stuck at that heaping burning coals on his head. That sounds fun if it's your enemy. But you'll notice the whole spirit of the pastor is not really about heaping burning coals. It's about being kind to the enemy, to the one who did you wrong. And in a metaphorical sense, you'll be taking away their power, that they've created this seeds of hate. And you'll be saying, love conquers evil. Mercy, Jesus said, triumphs over judgment. And so, to imitate Christ and invite others to do the same is not easy, but Paul did it. And even though we don't always understand it, we can keep studying and learning how to do it. So, if we can learn to walk with Christ, we'll discover the best plan and moments for our life. I'm sure of that. I'm living that. And so, I've made an important effort across these years to pick out the courses. I've had the help and the counsel of good people here in this community and outside to find some courses, those four wheels of the bus. And let's put them back on the screen. The four wheels of our bus. And these not only have excellent content, these are coming up, and at the very end in just a moment, I'm going to just show you when these courses are starting, so you can take a screenshot, We'll send it to you and say, hey, I want to be in that course. But I'm also talking about the courses, and hopefully you understood in the context why I shared about my passion, my vision, the concept of being a community. Because even when things are falling down, apparently, in parts of the world, God is always at work with his people. There are churches, there are Christians, there are groups that are not even Christians, or all kinds of people getting together even right now to figure out how to help the refugees, for example. And there's people in your neighborhood or the place that you work that also need a helping hand. So when we prepare ourselves wherever we are, then the basic principles of managing a crisis when it comes are going to be the same. And we can be a people of peace that others can look to in a tough time. So I was looking for courses that not only have excellent content, but they have to meet a couple of my personal requirements. So like, hey, I'm the pastor, and so I say, which courses are we teaching here and representing? And so a couple of the things that I wanted. Our courses have to be focused on the learning experience and not just the teaching, the communication of the professor. So I've been a professor, and I know what it was like when I was younger. I was just like telling people everything they needed to know, and I hoped they learned it, and the class was over and I was gone. Now I realize, hey, I'm standing up here in front of a bunch of really smart people with all different experiences, and they're thinking about what I say in different ways. And so I'm giving you some ideas, and hopefully you're going to take it. You're going to respect that I've studied, but you're going to, if you disagree, you'll tell me. Say, I have a question, but you'll work on it, and you'll go farther being in a community where I invite you to respond and to make your own conclusion, your own application, than if I just tell you this is the way it is. Because then you'll disagree and go your way. Does that make sense? So I wanted that course to be a place, every course that we teach, everything you do here, has to be a place that opens up dialogue and allows people to give their opinion, their point of view. Second, these have to be courses that are recognized internationally by diverse communities, different kinds of communities. Because interdenominational means sharing what we have in common, instead of spending time saying what makes us different in all our small parochialism. And the third thing that I want to always keep in mind is I want them to be courses that are allowing leadership to come from all different places, not just one nationality, and not just men teaching or not just elders teaching, because, I don't do that. I want to be a culture on our Christ Church bus where everybody is invited, everybody's welcome, and everybody gets a voice and a vote. And so when I say those things, actually, those are not just little details. Those are, for me, those are big deals. I meet with leaders and pastors, and I am a leader of pastors, and so I'm aware many churches don't share those kinds of values, and so I want to be clear about what we do. And so when I present a course, and here at Christ Church, when we present a course, it's because the pastoral team has really looked and we say, man, this is a great opportunity. Now, if you don't do it, there's no judgment, there's no pressure. It's just like, if it fits in your time and your schedule right now, I think if you get in there, you'll be glad you started out. And so, a couple things. Alpha. Alpha, what is Alpha? It just presents the basic Christian truths, basic truths of the Christian faith. And it's had a huge impact globally among Protestants and Catholics. You can go all over the world in languages, and you can find a church where they're doing Alpha. And when people write me, they leave here and they say, well, I'm going to such and such a place. Can I find a church? The first thing I look at is, does that church do Alpha? No, it's not on their website. Do they do emotionally healthy spirituality? I look for these courses because then I know there's at least some people in that church that have the same kind of cultural values that you've enjoyed here. So, Alpha, the marriage course is awesome. We've done it here many times. We'll be doing it later in the year. Emotionally healthy spirituality is about maturing emotionally. It's really helped me. I have, like, my life has changed since I got involved with that about 2014. And now I'm leading pastors and people, and I'm about to teach a course online, so I'm going to give you the dates. And you can jump in there and join the course. And Lisa and I are going to the States tomorrow, Monday. We're leaving like at midnight. And we've been invited by the authors of the material, Pete and Jerry Scazzaro, to be a part of what they call a cohort, a leadership mentoring intensive time for about 1.5 years. These will make 4 trips, and someone offered to pay for our airfare for us to go. And they invite us to be part of this group, and we'll be meeting with 7 or 8 other couples. And it's a huge opportunity for us. But I take it not as like just a cool thing to take a trip, because if you've been here long enough, you know I don't like to travel away, and Lisa even less. But we just traveled, and we're traveling again. We'll travel several times, but I think it's important for the work that I'm doing here and in other places, the diversity of concerns. I need this kind of coaching. I need this kind of input to be the leader you need us to be. So life can be cruel and complex at times. And so to be involved, to be engaged, to do well, year after year, we need the coaching and the input. Community Bible study is an opportunity. There's about 500,000 people around the world studying, and so when you're doing community Bible study, we're just reading and observing the text a week at a time. And I just looked at the clock and I saw the time's gone, so thanks for your patience. I will wrap this up. Godly play helps us to find rhythm in a chaotic and rushed life. It helps the children to contemplate mystery, to use their imagination in their work, to participate without pressure, to be with other children in a calm and secure place. And it teaches them to be, as they grow up, to value people not just for what they do, in fact, not even for what they do, but for just being a person. And godly play teaches us as a congregation that you and I need to learn from the children. We can learn. We can learn as children. So yeah, just put the graphic up there. We're going to send this to you, get it out in the chats and the different things. But so we've got these courses coming up on March 8th. That's a week from Tuesday. I will be teaching emotionally healthy spirituality online through the seminary that exists here in Montevideo. We got quite a few students. It's going to be fun. If you want to be a part of that, it's Tuesday nights from 7 to 8:30. And you have to pay to sign up. And just come and ask me. I'll give you the information and figure that out. But here at the church, we're not teaching that course this semester. We just don't have the capacity. But if you want to do it, join me online. March 21st, we'll be back with the community Bible study. That's basically free. We're mostly on Zoom, but we'll have a group that meets here. And we're going to be finishing up the study of the Gospel of John. We spent about 30 weeks last year. We took a break for the summer, and we'll be getting back into that. And it's open to everybody. You can just come and join, be in one. There'll be like 5 or 6 different groups meeting different times online, and a group that meets here on Monday nights. Alpha, May 4th. So May and June, all of the courses last like about 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. So the first one listed there, March 8th, that lasts, I think, 8 weeks, so March and April. Bible study, I don't remember, we got maybe 9 weeks of that. Alpha course is May and June. In August, we'll be back with a new community Bible study. And then I can't see the marriage course. What does the date say?
August 10th.
August 10. Thanks, Brian. So August 10, the marriage course, so that also takes like 7 to 8 weeks. So that's a great thing. It's a date night. You have to be married to be in that. And even if you've gone through it before, it is a great time. It's a date night with your spouse. And one more date that's not on there, but I want you to write it down. May 27th. You're the first ones to know. The first ones to know. May 27th, Santiago Benavides is coming to town. And he is a fantastic musician. He's a close friend of mine. And he's going to be here for one night, one concert. And our place is too small. So I'm working with some other people to find an adequate venue for Santiago to He's got now we brought him here to Montevideo, and then other groups started, and now he's got a big fan club. So if you're going to want to be there, it's only Spanish, but you're going to want to hear and meet Santiago. So May 27th is a Friday night. In Christ Church, my last thoughts. We want to model a community without power struggles, without being greedy for more possessions, without just small-minded parochialism, I call it. Our locality, our place, our church. We're living in a world that is convulsed. And we can never change other people, but we can change ourselves. And if we will work on ourselves, we never know what potential that's going to have down the road. So if you take a course in Christ Church, it's not to just take a class, check it off, and get a certificate. It's more like an active learning experience, a process to help you and us become more, to have greater integrity, wholeness, more capable, more coherent as we're facing the crisis and the cruelties in our world. We can't maybe do much in the world when we think of the whole globe, but we can learn to be people of light and love and truth in the place where we are.